Renisha McBride, a vibrant and promising 19-year-old African-American woman, found herself caught in the crosshairs of a chilling incident on that fateful night of November 2nd, 2013, in Dearborn Heights, Michigan. Picture this: a dimly lit street, a frightened young woman searching for help. This is where our story begins. Renisha, disoriented and injured after colliding with a parked vehicle, embarked on a desperate journey seeking aid and solace. But what Renisha couldn't foresee was that her plea for assistance would lead her to a confrontation with a man whose actions would send shockwaves through the nation. Theodore Wafer, the homeowner she approached, held the power to change her destiny forever. Brace yourselves as we unravel the layers of tension and injustice that surrounded this case. The shooting of Renisha McBride shattered the peace, reigniting age-old debates on racial profiling, self-defense laws, and the ethical use of lethal force against an unarmed young woman in distress. The encounter between Renisha McBride and Theodore Wafer that unfolded that night would become a pivotal moment, shrouded in mystery and gripping suspense. As Renisha, her body trembling from the accident and disoriented from the impact, approached Theodore Wafer's home seeking help, she had no idea of the dramatic turn her life was about to take. Theodore Wafer, inside his home, was jolted by the unexpected noise and commotion outside his doorstep. The darkness of the night cast long shadows, adding an eerie atmosphere to the unfolding events. The tension in the air was palpable as Renisha, desperate for assistance, knocked on Theodore's door, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and hope. It was at this precise moment that their worlds collided, sparking a series of split-second decisions that would forever change their lives. Theodore, confronted with an unfamiliar face in the dead of night, experienced a surge of fear and panic. Unable to comprehend the situation fully, his mind raced, clouded by the uncertainty of the circumstances. Theodore's mind raced, trying to make sense of the situation and assess the potential threat at his doorstep. The darkness of the late hour further intensified his apprehension, clouding his judgment and amplifying his fears. In that crucial moment, the weight of uncertainty bore down upon him, forcing him to make a decision that would have devastating consequences. Theodore, wrestling with his emotions, contemplated the options before him. Should he open the door and risk potential danger, or should he remain barricaded within the safety of his home? Conflicting thoughts battled within him, his instincts urging caution while empathy tugged at his conscience. Ultimately, Theodore made a choice driven by fear, a choice that would forever alter the course of both his life and Renisha's. He cautiously opened the door, his grip on reality strained by the adrenaline coursing through his veins. In the dimly lit doorway, Theodore and Renisha's paths intersected, their eyes locked for a brief moment. Two strangers caught in the tumultuous intersection of fear, desperation, and misunderstanding. Time seemed to stand still as the gravity of their encounter hung heavy in the air. It was in that precise moment that Theodore's fear reached its peak, and his judgment became clouded. A split second later, a shot rang out, shattering the silence and shattering Renisha's life. The bullet found its mark, sealing her fate and launching an unprecedented chain of events that would grip the nation. In a split second, Theodore made a choice, driven by a perceived threat and the instinct to protect himself and his property. A gunshot shattered the silence, reverberating through the stillness of the night. The air hung heavy with the consequences of that fateful moment as Renisha, struck by the bullet, collapsed to the ground, her life slipping away. Chaos ensued as the impact of Theodore's actions reverberated through the neighborhood. The piercing sound of the gunshot shattered the calm, awakening the community to an unthinkable tragedy. Panic and confusion spread like wildfire as neighbors rushed to the scene, desperately trying to comprehend the senselessness of it all. Law enforcement arrived, their presence further heightening the tension. The weight of the situation settled upon the shoulders of the officers as they amassed the scene, grappling with a complex web of emotions and legal ramifications. The stage was set for a legal battle that would expose the deep-seated issues at the heart of society. As Renisha's family received the devastating news of her passing, a tsunami of grief and anger washed over them. They refused to let her memory fade away silently, resolved to seek justice for their beloved daughter and ensure that her tragic end would not be in vain. The aftermath of the shooting reverberated far beyond the confines of Dearborn Heights. It became a catalyst for a nationwide dialogue on racial profiling, the use of lethal force, and the inequalities that persist within our criminal justice system. Protests erupted, demanding answers, accountability, and a change in the way society perceives and responds to individuals in distress. The chilling sound of the gunshot shattered the stillness of the night, leaving an indelible mark on the lives of those present and sending shockwaves through the community. In the aftermath of the shooting, chaos and confusion reigned as the full weight of the tragedy unfolded before the eyes of the onlookers. Witnesses, drawn to the commotion, rushed to Renisha McBride's side, their faces filled with disbelief and horror. They scrambled to provide whatever aid they could, their hearts heavy with the realization that a young life had been extinguished in an instant. Their desperate attempts to save Renisha's life underscored the sense of urgency and the devastating consequences of that single gunshot. Emergency responders and law enforcement arrived swiftly, their presence amplifying the gravity of the situation. Their focus shifted from providing medical assistance to conducting a thorough investigation. The crime scene became a nexus of emotions, a convergence of grief, anger, and a yearning for answers. Forensic experts meticulously combed through the scene, collecting evidence that would piece together the sequence of events leading up to the tragic shooting. Each detail, every fragment of information, took on profound significance as the puzzle of Renisha McBride's final moments began to take shape. Witnesses were interviewed, their voices trembling with the weight of what they had witnessed. Their accounts provided crucial insights into the nature of the encounter and the events leading up to the fatal shot. Their recollections, at times conflicting and fragmented, painted a mosaic of fear, confusion, and tragedy. Meanwhile, Renisha's family and loved ones grappled with the devastating reality of their loss. Grief washed over them in relentless waves, their hearts shattered by the senseless act that had robbed them of their vibrant and promising daughter. Anguish transformed into a resolute determination to seek justice, to ensure that Renisha's life would not be forgotten. The local community rallied around Renisha's family, offering support, comfort, and a collective determination to demand accountability. Vigils were held, where candles flickered in the darkness, a symbol of hope amidst the somber atmosphere. The outpouring of support transcended race, age, and background, demonstrating the profound impact of Renisha's story on the collective consciousness. The media picked up the story, shining a spotlight on the tragic shooting and its implications. Renisha McBride's name echoed through news headlines, igniting a nationwide conversation about racial bias, stereotypes, and the urgent need for reform. The public outcry reverberated through social media platforms, with hashtags demanding justice and an end to the violence that disproportionately affects marginalized communities. Protesters took to the streets, their voices echoing through city blocks, demanding justice, not only for Renisha McBride, but for all victims of similar tragedies. Their chants became a rallying cry, a call for change, and a powerful reminder of the pursuit of justice that is a collective responsibility. As the case made its way through the legal system, tensions remained high, and the nation held its breath, awaiting the day when Theodore Wafer would face the consequences of his actions. The courtroom became a battleground of emotions as Renisha's family and supporters sought closure and the assurance that justice would prevail. The trial became a gripping spectacle, with each day unveiling new revelations and exposing the deep-seated issues that plagued society. The courtroom was filled with a palpable sense of tension as the prosecution and defense presented their arguments, leaving no stone unturned in their quest for truth and justice. Renisha McBride's character and the circumstances surrounding her approach to Theodore Wafer's doorstep were scrutinized and dissected by both sides. The defense sought to portray Renisha as a potential threat, emphasizing Theodore's perceived fear for his safety and the perceived necessity of his actions. Meanwhile, the prosecution painted a different picture, highlighting Renisha's vulnerability and the disproportionate response to her pleas for help. Witnesses took the stand, recounting their versions of the events that unfolded that tragic night. Their testimonies added layers of complexity to the narrative, shedding light on the nuances and perspectives surrounding the shooting. Expert witnesses, including forensic specialists and psychologists, were called upon to provide insight into the dynamics of fear, human behavior, and the use of lethal force. The tension in the courtroom was palpable as Renisha's family, seated in the gallery, endured the emotional roller coaster of reliving their daughter's final moments. Their presence served as a reminder of the profound loss they had suffered and the justice they desperately sought. Closing arguments echoed through the hushed courtroom, the prosecution's impassioned pleas for accountability clashing with the defense's assertions of self-defense and the weight of fear. The fate of Theodore Wafer now rested in the hands of the jury, who held the responsibility of delivering a verdict that would determine the course of justice. Days turned into weeks as the jury meticulously examined the evidence, debated the intricacies of the case, and grappled with the weight of their decision. The eyes of the nation remained fixed on the courtroom, anxiously awaiting the resolution of this harrowing saga. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the verdict was delivered. The courtroom fell silent as the words reverberated through the air. Theodore Wafer was found guilty on all counts, including second-degree murder, manslaughter, and felony firearm possession. Gasps filled the room. Tears streamed down the faces of Renisha's family and supporters, while some held their breaths in disbelief. The weight of the guilty verdict was a bittersweet victory for those who had fought tirelessly for justice, offering a glimmer of closure amidst the immeasurable pain. Theodore Wafer faced the consequences of his actions. He was found guilty on all counts, including second-degree murder, manslaughter, and felony firearm possession. The court sentenced him to serve 17 to 32 years in prison.